We begin today the laws of Tain und Nitan, which are claims that are being made. Different claims in a court. Introduction. It contains one mitzvah. The laws of a person issues a claim against a colleague, and he either admits or denies the claim. This mitzvah is explained in the following chapters. So when a person who issues a claim against a colleague with regard to movable property, and the defendant acknowledges a portion of the claim, he must pay what he acknowledges, which, of course, that makes sense, and then take an oath with regard to the remainder. This is a scriptural obligation, as the verse says, that this is it. Similarly, if a defendant denies the entire obligation and says such a thing never happened, and one witness testifies that the defendant is obligated to the plaintiff, right? So there's one witness, and as we know, one witness is not sufficient to oblige anybody. You need two witnesses. So the defendant is obligated by scriptural law to take an oath. So now the defendant has to take an oath and saying, by scriptural law, meaning biblical law, that to take an oath, as the oral tradition teaches, whenever two witnesses would obligate a person to pay money, one witness obligates him to take an oath. So here the witness said that, no, you do owe money, right? Where the defendant says, I don't owe money. So the one witness is not sufficient to obligate the payment, but is sufficient to obligate that person has to take an oath in order to absolve themselves from any payment. Taking an oath is a serious thing, and people don't want to do that. And as we will learn in the laws of witnesses or oaths, that if a person is not believable, the person is dishonest, and that person will not be able to take an oath. Okay. Well, I think we're going to be discussing these things if we get there. Okay, similarly, it was derived through the oral tradition that one witness shall not rise up against any man for any iniquity or any sin. He may, however, rise up against him to obligate him to take an oath. Oh, yeah, two ways there. Halacha number 2. There are only 3 individuals who are obligated by scriptural law to take an oath. A person who denied a portion of the claim of movable property, right? In other words, the plaintiff said you took I don't know, 3 watches. You owe me 3 watches, and he says, no, I only owe 1. So he's denies part of the claim. A person obligated by one witness, as we just mentioned, and a watchman. But with regard to a watchman, right, someone who's watching over something for another person, so it says in the verse says, the oath of God shall be between them. We've already explained that the oath required of a watchman in Hilchos Schiris. So we learned that law already, like last month. Now, each of these 3 individuals takes an oath and becomes free of the obligation to pay. Right? That's what the oath does, because you're the defendant, and it makes you free from any obligation. In contrast, those who take an oath and collect money they claim, an employee, for example, a person who was injured, a person who impairs the legal power of the promissory note, and the like, and similarly, those who take an oath because there is a possibility of a claim being lodged against them, partners and sharecroppers, all take oaths because of our sages' ordinances. In other words, it's not a biblical law, it's a rabbinic law. Although all these oaths are ordained by rabbinic decree, they all resemble the scriptural oath, and all must be taken by holding a sacred article. Right? There's sometimes rabbinic law, you don't hold a sacred article, but when it's a stronger rabbinic oath, then it resembles the biblical oath in that you hold on to a sacred article. Okay, a defendant is not liable to take a scriptural oath when the Coley claims that he owes movable property and the defendant either denies the entire matter, such thing never occurred, like, you know, I don't have any of your watches, right? So there's no partial admittance, so which would make it then a biblical oath. Second, admitted a portion of the claim and gave it to him immediately, saying, "This is what I owe, and here it is," right? Rather than the court, because we're talking about this is in court, right? Three, admits that he had originally owed the plaintiff the debt, but claims that the plaintiff waived the payment, gave him the object as a present. So either waived or gave him as a present, or he already returned the debt. Right. So then he wouldn't take a biblical oath. Or the fourth thing is admits owing barley while the plaintiff claims wheat. Nevertheless, the sages of the Gemara ordained that in all these instances, the defendant should take a shvus hesses, which is a rabbinic oath, before being freed of liability. The oath does not resemble the scriptural oath because one need not hold a sacred article while taking it. All right, so it's a lesser stringency in the law, and that and that taking that of taking a shvus is in Hilchos Shvus, right? The shvuos that we learned about that. Okay, I'd love to continue, but I actually have to go and perform a funeral.